Good afternoon and welcome to a working lunch with Nordin. It's wonderful to have you all here again today. Today we've got a friend of the show. Of course, Muru is one of the country's leading experts in cybersecurity and all kinds of digital resilience areas, which I'm digging into, where we're actually moving ahead with what we're doing next week with the Malaysia Global Business Forum, which is addressing weaponized information in the media, which often happens after a cyber attack. Goes well for cyber criminals and goes badly for people playing cyber defense. Muru, thank you for joining us today.
Welcome, Nordin. It's always a pleasure being on the show. I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Good to have you on the show, and good to always get your insights into what's going on in the industry. Before we really get stuck into this idea of weaponized information, can you tell us a bit about what you do as an individual and a bit about what Novum does?
Uh, well, my name is Muru. I'm executive chairman of a company called Advanced Security Network, which has been around for 30 years. And it's been involved in the entire spectrum of security, from physical systems and bodyguards, private investigations, and all that stuff. And sort of like expanded my business into cybersecurity a few years ago, because I look at cybersecurity as a natural progression of my existing business. So to me, cybersecurity is security, period. Whether it's cyber, whether it's digital, whether it's information security, it's still security. So we have got a business where we have positioned ourselves as bespoke consultants. We provide consultancy services. We advise clients on how to actually start. Because I think if you look at cybersecurity, if you look at digital transformation, if you look at cloud transformation, all these terms today, it's all out there. Everyone's talking about it. But I think the most important thing is when you talk to people in the business, in the industry, in the government, the key question is, how do I actually start? Where do I start? So these are the things which we are advising on now. We've got a fairly competent technical team. I'm not a technical person myself. I basically do. My job is to basically create awareness on cyber resilience, on cyber hygiene, and overseeing the overall operations of my company. So that's a bit about myself. Nordin, over to you.
Muru, I always like to talk to you about when cybersecurity goes wrong, but we're going to get into some of that later. We've seen recently quite a lot of news around failing systems. A lot of news around whether it's financial institutions, whether it's websites, from agency websites to all kinds of failures. I often see it as an issue in terms of crisis management and crisis communications. But is there a case that a lot of this is preceded by a cyber attack?
Okay, you're asking me a very, very sensitive question, because cybersecurity, unfortunately, as we speak today, I don't know what the future holds. At the moment, it's very reputation based. So it's very difficult to get someone to actually admit that they were attacked. So I think that's where you're talking about media, you're talking about coming out in the news. So lots of it is speculative, but there's never smoke without fire. So so sometimes when you do see these technical glitches, it's more. There's more to it, But I suppose you cannot blame those people who have actually suffered the so-called breach, because as I said, it's heavily linked to reputation. So if you're in the market, in business, it's always about bottom line, and it always it always involves competition. So you want to maintain a certain position in the market. So if you are frequently attacked, or you're frequently a victim of a cyber breach, it does not do well for your reputation. And to today's social media news spreads fast. So it can give you a situation where it might be difficult for you to recover if you start having this reputation in the market that you are vulnerable and you are very susceptible to cyber attacks. So I think it's not fair for me to say that that's what happened, but well, I know. I suppose I got to leave it to your imagination.
Mm. Now, the other thing I wanted to dig into is you often talk about just the simple questions, and these kind of simple questions are often difficult to answer for CEOs. And I always love it when we sit down, we have our coffees off air. You say, you ask three questions, and those
Four.
three difficult questions at four, yeah. And luckily you're on the show. And what are those four? What does that mean for organizational reform and getting it right before you even start? Because sometimes people talk about cybersecurity and data resilience, right? They're like, oh, I'm not a tech guy. I'm not this guy. I'm a CEO. What are the four questions and why are they so important?
Well, the four questions I normally like to ask, especially at board level, because when you're talking to a technical team of the company, then the presentation is completely different. But at the board level, the questions I like to ask is, the first question is, do you know where your data is? That's the first question. Do you know who has access to your data? That's the second question. Third question is, do you know how valuable your data is? And the fourth one is, do you know the losses that you will suffer if your data is compromised? Now, the third and fourth is different because you have got value of your data, but losses, it's not just, it does not directly correlate with your value, because losses is also reputation, downtime, all that stuff. So are you able to answer these questions? If I were to ask you in the physical world, why I say the physical world, Nordin, is I think we have to first of all realize and accept that today we live in two parallel worlds. We live in the physical world and we live in the digital world. And of course, this is a topic for another day. But if you're looking at what's coming in the future with metaverse and all that stuff, we are going to actually be having two personas. So there's going to be two Murus, two Nordins, and one living in the physical world, one living in the digital world. So in the physical world, the four questions that I asked you, if I ask you where your money is at the moment or where your information, your files are at the moment, you'll be able to answer more or less to a certainty. You will be able to probably answer all the four questions, very accurately. But if I ask you in the digital world, now, so far, no one has actually been able to answer all the four questions, let alone the first one. So where is your data? I mean, you probably say it's in the cloud, but where? Because if you're talking about cloud, you're talking about shared platforms, so it's not exclusive to you. If you're talking about your filing cabinet and you've got your documents in your filing cabinet, that filing cabinet belongs to you. The key is with you. It's in your premises, and so you know that it's there. But if you're talking about the cloud, then it's a different question altogether. So these are the four critical questions I think you, as at the board level, they need to first of all understand and answer, before you can even go to the next step.
Yeah, no, I like this kind of simplicity in the world of complex issues, especially when we talk about cyber threats. Yes, we all want to have this wonderful digital transformation. We want to like walk into an office that is like, in the movies, you just see all these beautiful displays up and you can just flick things here and flick things there. Magically happens. This is one. You see that all comes at a cost or a potential, especially in terms of threat. So I just want to say hi to a whole bunch of people being saying hi to us because it's popping up here. Hi Camilla, hi Victor, and hi Agnes. Always good to have you guys on the show and joining us and we're looking forward to answering some of your questions. So when we get through those first four questions, when we get to the breakdown of in a sense breakdown of communications, we see that the attack has happened. We've seen the attack. the organization is handling the attack internally, but somehow it gets out on social media. What should CEOs be thinking about in terms of uh, handling it, in terms of reputation management? But at the same time, are you limited by what you can communicate because you're currently under an attack, and anything that you can and will be used against you by cyber terrorists or cyber criminals? What are your thoughts there?
Well, that area is your expertise, Nordin. You are the crisis management guru. But I think as far as on the cyber side, obviously, first of all, if you have been attacked, the first thing you probably have to do is to contain it, study what is the extent of the damage, and then because you're looking at all that other stuff, it comes after that, so you first of all you need to contain it because you need to know exactly what's the extent of the damage. Because if you're part of a supply chain, the whole thing will trigger off. I can give you an example. So, for example, you're in the automotive industry, and you're an SME that supplies a component that actually is fitted into a car. For example, let's say it's a BMW. Now, it may just be a small component, but that component completes the car. So if you're not able to, if you are down, even for say 4 days, a week, because there have been breaches where it takes you sometimes 2 to 3 weeks to actually come back and be operational. So it can actually cause you irreparable damages in terms of losses, financial losses, plus it also hits on your reputation. So I think this is where, I mean, as a cybersecurity person, obviously we are we are involved in the business of solving the problem. But managing the crisis, that's where probably we'll have to work with people like you, and and actually to handle the media, and because you see, you're talking about, there's two different scenarios here. If you're talking about, say, a financial institution, now that's a monster. You have your Bank Negara RMIT standards. You have your you probably have a department looking after this with about 80 to 100 staff and all that stuff. So you'll be able to actually designate and delegate stuff. So someone handles the media, someone handles this and all that stuff. But if you're a small SME, you might not even have an IT department, let alone IT staff. So this kind of stuff, if somebody wants to say, for example, just throwing it out there, a competitor wants to bring you down because he wants to fill that gap that you are going to vacate. So that kind of reputation, sometimes, if it's a big organization, you will be able to manage it, but if you're a small organization, then cyber breach can actually collapse your entire business. And it's happened. It's in studies have been conducted. Of course, it depends on who has done studies, but on an average, 60 to 70% of SMEs say that if they were to suffer a major cyber breach, they're out of business. So I think that's we have to look at it. We can't just say it depends on who you are. So if you are the government, then you can probably work out a kind of answer to satisfy the masses. So I know not everybody has that access to that media management.
Now, you mentioned one key area, which is the supply chain. Now, a lot of, I mean, massive amount of manufacturing going on here in Malaysia and also around Asia and ASEAN. Now, you kind of spelled out part of the anatomy of an attack. So now I don't need to destroy the main company. I can destroy the suppliers, as it were, and bring down the suppliers. Are companies really in a position, or do they understand that you need to help your SMEs get to the point where they can pass a cybersecurity audit? Is that kind of thing started to enter into bigger manufacturers in Malaysia's thinking, or are we still in the infancy stage of good luck everybody? Where are we between good luck everybody and look,
Well,
we have an iron curtain or an iron ring, as they said in Russia during the Olympics.
Well, coincidentally, yesterday we had a presentation. We had actually brought in a delegation of from a chamber, one of the largest chambers in the country. And the discussion was held at a government agency that is responsible for cybersecurity. And this was one of those things that was highlighted. Getting the chambers, because the chambers play an important part. It's very difficult to go door to door, and it's like I mean, I would like to quote my good friend Vix, who was on last week. He was talking. I remember he mentioned that cybersecurity is like insurance. So it was not easy to sell insurance. So if you're talking about 2017 and before that, cyber, yes, it probably like it's tough. It's not it's a hard sell, because people just don't understand. But if you look at the insurance industry today, it's insurance by default. You don't actually sell insurance that much anymore, because corporations know that they need insurance. Insurance is required is required as a prerequisite for certain industries and all that stuff. So as far as cyber is concerned, well, the discussion yesterday was getting the chambers to actually go out there and with the help of course, the relevant agencies, or it can be a consultant, to actually go out there and create the awareness. If you ask me how matured we are in terms of awareness, well, okay, we have the upper tier, which is, for like example, I told you the banks, you have the big JLCs, you have the big tech companies and all that. So they are there, they are investing money, they are investing time, they're investing in building up teams to actually be ready to be ready for a possible cyber attack, and build up the cyber resilience. But if we are talking about the smaller organizations, the SMEs, well, I think we have a long way to go. And the frightening part about the whole thing is that 95% of businesses in Malaysia fall within the category of an SME. So you're talking only the 5% who are actually taking cybersecurity seriously and all that stuff. But today banks outsource a lot of their work to SMEs. So this is where I'm. If you're going back to the question you asked me, whether this particular incident, is it a cyber attack? The cyber attack itself might not actually happen at the principal, because the principal might be a big organization with with all the defenses and all the requisite requirements to be cyber resilient. It might have happened at one, as I mentioned, at one of the small players. It could just be an example, just a printer. Somebody is actually doing printing job for that particular organization, and he might be totally naked as far as cybersecurity is concerned. So I think this is going to be the biggest challenge for cybersecurity players, both in government agencies and also private sector, because I think the cybersecurity companies itself had to change the last 2 years because of COVID. They had to also pivot their focus, because it was no more just going into an office and asking questions and setting up something there and walking out. Today, people are working from home. So 70% of those people might not actually be using the network in the office. They're using their home Wi-Fi to actually do office work. So the cybersecurity companies now have to think of how to secure those people. So those are called endpoints. So how do you secure them? Because it's changed. The entire thing on how you look at it has actually changed. So I think the awareness part and the educating part, and this is what's going to be crucial over the next 2 or 3 years. Thankfully, we have responsible agencies like Cybersecurity Malaysia, which is doing their part, and they're doing quite a bit in the background, which people don't know about, because they're always at the back end. So you actually don't know that these are the guys who actually solve many of the problems or many of the issues that come up, high-profile stuff that have come up in Malaysia. I can share one with you very quickly. If you talk about the MH370 crisis, when the pilot himself was accused because he had a simulator at home, and he was accused, and FBI came down, and there was a lot of investigations. The team from China came down. Suddenly, it all went silent because Cybersecurity Malaysia actually proved that there was no foul play as far as the simulator is concerned. But this you don't actually it's not public knowledge. So stuff like that. So they do a lot of work in the background. Then we have got the National Cybersecurity Agency, NACSA, which is now drafting the framework, because we don't actually have a cybersecurity act as such. I think many nations are still now just grappling with that and coming up with their own individual cybersecurity acts. So once the act comes in, then it becomes more an audit requirement. It's no more voluntary. So if you want to be in business, if you want to do business, then you need to have minimum standards. So it's like safety industry, for example. So you probably have to have a cybersecurity policy within your company, and you need to have yourself audited frequently. You need to update yourself with So until that happens, now at the moment, I think people like me, and of course I'm not the only one. There are many others who are going out there and actually trying to create the awareness, working with the government, going out there talking to associations, to it's an easier way to talk to associations because you're able to have a bigger audience as opposed to talking to individuals. So we are heading towards that, Nordin. The work is being
Okay.
done. So hopefully, it's just that it's a bit slow. The
Mhm.
hackers have got a big lead time, so we've got a tough time catching up with them.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, it keeps you busy, and it's good that we got you today. There's been a bunch of questions. Now, there's one is a question. This one just popped in from Isabel. What is the average investment into cybersecurity services? Without telling us too much sensitive information. The other one is around sensitive data, and this is an interesting area that I know Malaysia looked to change around the PDPA Act. You know this Personal Data Protection Act, which is really one of my biggest concerns because there are organizations that actually sell private data still, and it's still not breaching the act. Although the act is there, we're kind of on the journey. But when that act came out, that was great. It hit all the buttons. But digital economy has shifted. Cyber reality has shifted. What are the changes? What are the changes that are going to be needed in that act without going to the Cybersecurity Act? What are your thoughts there?
Okay, the first question I think is what about average investment. I think investment is it's a bit difficult to give you exact amounts, but if you're talking about bigger organizations, there are organizations that are spending millions on cybersecurity, on more on technology. So cybersecurity is not exactly just about technology. It's just like digital transformation. It's got to do with it's about people, processes, and technology. And the costly part is normally the technology. So, but people tend to think that I put something there, I pay for it, it's done. So it's not as easy as that. It's like having a sophisticated locking system at home, but not actually locking it because you forgot. You're busy thinking about something else. So the people and processes is where that is a bit difficult to quantify. But if you're talking about average investments, yeah, I know it can range from millions to a couple of thousand. Again, depends on the industries again. So if you're talking about SME, with say 20, 30 workers, and many of them have been going through tough times over the pandemic over the last 2 years, they won't be able to actually spend that kind of money. So there are solutions out there today that are thankfully coming up where they are plug and play. And you actually there are even solutions which are giving you on a subscription basis. So you're talking about a few thousand, depending on the industry you are. It can go up to millions, but don't neglect the people and processes, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, we are all humans. Humans are the weakest link. So an employee with a grudge or a simple thing as just, as Wix had also mentioned last week, just dropping a thumb drive in the premises of an office, the chances of someone taking that thumb drive and actually trying to find out what's in it first before they handing it over is very high. And once you have plugged it in,
Uh-huh.
that's it, you're done. So I think it's got to be a culture thing. Cybersecurity has to be a culture thing. It's just like safety and all that stuff. If today you go to a construction site, there are so many SOPs to follow. You got to wear your helmet, you got to walk on a certain line. Then it becomes a way of life. It's no more something that is no. So it just becomes by default. So I think
Okay.
that's where the time that requires time It requires discipline. It requires a top-down approach, and it requires what do you call the cooperation of everyone. It can be, from the CEO all the way down to the person doing the dispatch work. So that's looking at the investment thing. As far as
Okay.
the second question is concerned about the, I think what is the question again about sensitive
The
data?
Personal Data Protection Act and
Okay,
what's changing there.
I think you know that. Okay, I cannot answer that question because I was actually part of the workshop that was held on the amendments of the PDPA. We all had
Okay.
to sign. We all had to sign a
Okay,
confidentiality.
then we won't force you
But
to answer
yeah,
further.
so that has been it's been a bit delayed because of COVID. Many of these workshops and many of these things have actually been delayed due to COVID. But there are going to be many amendments. Okay, so the PDPA as it is I would say is becoming obsolete. So
Okay.
once that comes into play, then there will be tighter controls. There will be repercussions if data is leaked,
Okay.
because today everybody is collecting data. From your home cafe to your
Yeah.
pharmacy to your. So then because the key question here is, if the data is compromised, who's responsible? And if this person is responsible, now what action do you take? And that action has to be serious enough that this person makes sure that their data is not compromised again. So that's
Okay.
that's the
Exactly.
key thing now.
Shifting that responsibility back onto to those who are holding the data.
Yeah. You collect,
Um,
you are responsible. As simple as that.
yeah, and this is an interesting part now. When we talk about shifting responsibility, and then we start to talk about, well, what can I do as an individual? I always like to ask the question, okay, what should CEOs and board members do, and those big people. What should everyone else do? You talked about cyber hygiene, and I was like, oh, that's a good term. What what is cyber hygiene, and what do we do to get it? How do we stay clean?
Well, go back to the basics. Change your passwords frequently. Don't use the same password for every single thing that you do. You have what do you call, of course, now you have your two-factor authentications. I'm surprised actually, Nordin, because when I speak to a lot of people, and I've spoken to a lot of people who are very senior, and they I'm very surprised that many of them don't even know that there's such thing called a two-factor authentication or a multi-factor authentication on their apps. So your apps, like your typical ones that you use, that everyone uses today, is your Facebooks and your Instagrams and your WhatsApps and your so they don't even know that basic stuff about the two-factor authentication. See, there's no such thing as a silver bullet as far as security is concerned, but these are all layers. You're just basically making it harder for the would-be attacker. So if it's like, if I'm in a housing area and I'm driving past and I've got some ill intentions, as I'm driving, I see there's this particular house that's got a box outside there that says that they have CCTV cameras and they're secured by such a company. I'll probably give it a skip. So I'll just keep driving, and then until I find a certain house where the gate is got a very flimsy lock. So all these things like two-factor authentication and multi-factor is basically just creating layers and just making it more difficult. So, and then obviously your antivirus has plays a certain role. Then you've got malware software now, and then you've got, of course, if you're looking at organizations, you have firewalls. We have default firewalls when we use our laptops and all that. But firewalls, I must say that they do not actually stop cyber breaches. So people must understand that. So a firewall is basically like having a very secure, tall wall with barbed wire around your house. So you've got the sense of security. Yes, it's secure, but it still doesn't stop anyone from throwing a stone over the wall, or or going up to a higher vantage point and looking through and seeing what you're up to. So a firewall has got its limitations, but it's a step. It's good to have the step. Update your apps. Again, something that many people don't do. I've spoken to so many people, and the question they'll ask me is, "Oh, are we supposed to update our apps?" I'm like, "Okay." I said, obviously you got to update your apps, because although you can put it on auto update, but I most of the time, if you go to your Play Store, if you're using Android, and you say update your apps, uh, you will still find 3 or 4 apps that have not been updated. So you got to actually manually update them. Okay, and then as far as organizations are concerned, keep your hard disk clean. Proper disposal of hard disk or of your computer equipment is very important. Wipe them clean, so there are actually services out there, people who can actually provide this service. Or you can even go to for example, Cybersecurity Malaysia, they've got their Cyber 999, which many people don't know. We took the chamber yesterday, and Cybersecurity Malaysia is celebrating their 25th year this year, and they did not even know there's such thing called Cybersecurity Malaysia, and they did not know there's Cyber 999, where you can actually call them, and they, if you have been breached or if your data has been lost, they actually have a data recovery clinic there, so stuff like this, so you got to do that. Change your, as I said, change your passwords. Keep keep your thumb drives responsibly, and don't share your thumb drive. So these are the little stuff that you got to do. But this is, I'm talking about more on the hygiene part. But if you're talking about how do you actually start, uh, especially if you're an organization, because I think our topic of the day is cyber security, cyber risk is a key decision for investment and partners. You got to get a health check done, all right? Find out where you stand. So basically, it's just like how we go for a health check. If you ask me whether I'm healthy, I'll say I'm healthy because I don't have any pain at the moment. I'm feeling fairly good. I'm healthy, But if I were to go for a health check, then tap 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 tap, I don't know whether I'm a walking time bomb who's going to just collapse tomorrow and probably meet my maker, or you start you. So you got to first of all know where you stand, because unless you are tested, because I've been in the security industry for so long. So, whenever people used to come and tell me, oh, we've got a state of the art security system at our place, we've invested in this. So, my simple question is always this: how many people attempted to break in?
Yeah, and if you
So,
don't know the kind,
yeah. So, if nobody has attempted to break in, then how do you know your system is good?
yeah, exactly.
So that's basically a cybersecurity health check. You will be put under a stress test. you know so when this is one of the things that will be that is going to happen in the future, not long. It's coming, where you actually, there will be a health check done, and you will be actually given a grade, whether it's low, medium, or high. Okay,
Just like
so
the
then
restaurants.
so that once that grading is done, that can even be used for investors. So investors will actually want to know, because we are talking about investors coming in today, who want to set up data centers in the digital economy and all that. They will want to know, how secure is my partner in Malaysia?
Yeah, exactly.
How what are the what are the laws there? What are the regulations? Which of course is being worked on now. And I think I've shared this with you, Nordin, but I can share with the audience here.
Sure.
I met an investment arm for the government recently during an event, and the person who was actually responsible for one of the sectors, European sector, he was actually telling me that today when they talk to investors, one of the questions they're actually asking the delegation from Malaysia is, how secure are you in terms of how good is your cyber posture in Malaysia? How secure is your what are your regulations? How secure are your companies? In terms of cybersecurity, how matured are they? So these questions are already cropping up. So I think it's a matter of time before, as I said, it'll become a requirement, a checklist, a tick. So if you want to do business, this is one of those things that you got to tick. You know, so that's my.
Cool. Now, Muro, we actually, this is the problem that you and I always have. We always run out of time very quickly. And sometimes if you see us in, you know, an unnamed location in Kuala Lumpur that involves a lot of coffee, you will see that we do spend quite a lot of time digging into these issues. Of course, next week we've been able to secure your time to get you to speak at the Malaysia Global Business Forum, where we're going to be addressing a lot of these issues, especially addressing weaponized information in the media. So one, I would really like to invite everyone to check out that event, whether you can join it virtually. There's still one or two potential spots if you do want to attend physically. But because of COVID-19 restrictions, we are keeping it rather COVID secure as well as cyber secure. So with that, Mura, I wanted to thank you for joining us today, and any last words of advice for people out there who are starting on this journey.
Okay. Two things. One is, if it's possible, can you see this?
It, you've just not okay.
Okay.
Closer to your chest, closer. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There we go.
This is
Don't
okay.
move.
This is how they tell me the world ends. This is a book which is difficult to get. The new copy has actually got like a sticker here. This is a book on cyber warfare. Now, why this book I found it very interesting is it won the Business Book of the Year award by Financial Times and McKinsey. So cyber warfare, cyber security, and business. So you can see where it's heading. So cybersecurity is no more an IT thing. It is a business thing. Business cybersecurity leaders, you need to be aligned. The board needs to buy in. I know it's difficult. There may be people who are who in the IT line here, and to convince their bosses to actually take cyber may not. But it has to be a top down. So that's key. The second thing is just practice basic cyber hygiene. So as I had mentioned earlier, update your apps. Be careful. I mean, we come from an era. Many of us, there may be those who are younger here, but we come from an era where we were told don't speak to strangers. And also, our old folks actually had a lot of good advice. Just take that advice and apply it to your digital life. Be careful in what information you share, and because, as I said, we all living two parallel worlds now. We've got our physical world and our digital world. In our physical world, we are pretty secure. We do take our security pretty seriously. But I think on the digital world, we have been very careless, chasing technology, chasing speed, chasing what's the next big thing in the market, and we have totally compromised on the security. So I think we really need to look at it. And if you're an organization, go get a health check done. Go there. You can Google out there. There are many people out there who provide this service, and you can even talk to the government agencies, and ask them for advice. But get that done, because you need to know where you stand, because it is going to be crucial in the future if you want to remain relevant in business. So that's the most important thing, remaining in business, because we have seen the last 2.5 years, businesses have just disappeared overnight. And before even COVID came in, there were many businesses that were holding back and trying to fight the inevitable. And then you just don't become relevant anymore. Once you're not no more relevant. So in business, I think the key word is sustainability. How do you sustain? So being cyber secure is going to be one of the top in the checklist as far as sustaining yourself in business.
Exactly. Now, Muro, we're going to end it here. Save some for next week for us.
Sure.
We look forward to getting you in that event, and we look forward to hearing your discussions and your key ideas and driving some of that agenda. So thank you, Muru, for joining us, and thank you everyone else for joining us. I know there's a bunch of questions we didn't get through. I'll try to answer some, and I'm going to twist Muru's arm to go in and answer some as well in the comment section. Thank you very much for joining us on this week's edition of A Working Lunch with Nordin, and we look forward to seeing you again next week on A Working Lunch with Nordin. And we've got another surprise in the digital world coming out for you next week as well. So stay tuned. Thank you very much again for joining us, and we'll see you again next week on A Working Lunch with Nordin.